Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bill and Rae Show. Thanks for stopping in. I'm going to make another marble today. I'm going to do some kind of more simple ingredients, just some stringers and some fuming. Let's see what we can get going here. Instead of making any fancy canes or any serious prep work, I've got all the prep work done I need, just pulling out some Cobalt stringer and some clear stringer. And let's see what we can create. So just jumping right into this 19 millimeter clear rod. I'll get this end cleaned up and then we'll begin gathering this up, and just starting out with a clear base, clear core. Clean up this cut end. Another beautiful day here in the springtime. Busy doing lots of yard work. Lots to do this time of year. We've got birthday parties and graduation parties and all kinds of things happening this month. So I'll just begin condensing this backwards, building up a gather. See, this rod's got some scratches in it, so I'll try and pull out some of this stuff that gets, it looks bright when you get it, the glass hot. When you have little bubbles or scratches, they'll look really bright. I hope you guys are all doing pretty good, taking care of yourselves. Things are seem kind of a little intense right now. So we come out here to the torch shop and we're trying to just take a moment, just take a breath. Let's not get too caught up in other craziness. Try and break that cycle of being fixated on one topic. I know this morning I got up way too early this morning. I had way too much coffee, so hopefully by now I can kind of settle down, ease into this. And I had kind of an uneasy feeling this morning, which has more to do probably with what I ate last night and all that sort of thing. But just got up feeling a little off base. And scrolling on the computer, it wasn't terribly helpful. Now some of this, it's not bright spots or anything, but I can just kind of see that surface layer of glass that looks kind of a different glow. Things that run at a different glow are not ideal. So this marble hopefully is going to be relatively quick and easy to put together. Some of my marble projects have been taking 2 hours, and it's kind of intense. So aiming to do something a little simpler. But because of that, I only have a few layers to put down, so I need to start a little larger to begin with. If I want to have a marble consistent with kind of the scale that I've been working with lately. Definitely not very critical. One thing I love about marbles is they don't, at least what I do, they don't have to be a specific size. They just have to be round. Yeah, this glass seems to have quite a skin to it. But every time I rip into it, I gotta get it back into shape. So that's a pretty good gather here. Some nice clean glass. Caught in my sleeve here. Trying to get the heat base and the bulk of that glass is down to a fairly solid state. I'm just kind of getting the heat on this pointed end, a little bit of angle. I'm just going to kind of draw this out. Again, some of these designs, I kind of like to have some more real estate, as it were, to put a pattern down, and then it's going to get kind of compressed in a little bit. So this initial shaping is kind of important. Getting the right scale for what I want it to ultimately be. I'm going to do a little flame polish here. Get out of the heat. And I'm going to add a marker here. See if I can maintain this marker. Put it out here where it hopefully doesn't get disturbed. Because we're going to do fuming, a couple different ideas going on here. We're going to start out with gold. Today I chose to use my little heated garage to warm up my gold. So I'll just go on the mark there. Let's see. Kind of want to hold this vertically, I think. Let me switch the view here. It got hot. That's the only problem with this. It gets way too much of it hot. Okay. And then we want to switch 180 and do some silver. Silver will have a tendency to spray around the whole thing. I'm going to add a little bit of heat. I'll let some of this kind of cook into the glass. Now, for the fun part, the challenging part. I want this flame kind of small. Try and get a small controlled flame. So I'm going to start out here at the end. And I'm going to spiral this on. Try and keep the fumed body below the flame. Now we come up here to the wide end and gonna kind of end up here. I need to kind of heat this in. I'm not sure what this is going to do to my fume layer. A lot of times I get to these stages and I want to burn out the fume. Right now I'm not really wanting to burn it out. I may actually go for a little more. Okay. Now we're going to come back down the other direction. Now at this point, I think I need to melt this down to get it fairly flat. Trying to draw a pattern with those raised ridges, and it's kind of a lumpy, bumpy path. Okay, I'll focus this with the marver just a bit. And there's still quite a bit of fume going on there. So then we're going to take some clear. I don't have a lot to guide me, but the ridge from the last pass, you can kind of see that on the edge. That's the only thing, you draw some of these. I didn't actually draw this one out on paper, but you draw it in my mind. But when you go to actually do it, sometimes it's visually a lot more challenging than just drawing lines. juggling my positioning there, trying to stay in the right spot in the flame is a little hard. Now I can be a little bit more aggressive at heating this in. Kind of hard to describe some of the marvering motions like this. I'm actually kind of bunching it up a little bit and pushing that edge, the wide edge, to be a little wider. Okay, still got my little indicator spot on here. So I'll do one more pass with some fume. Off my little heater. So and then we're going to go back around, alternating directions. Again. Well, kind of the interesting or fun thing about doing different fuming layers like this is I have no idea how this is going to turn out. But that's kind of the point. I want to try something and see if this results in anything interesting or if it's just a mess. One thing through the years I definitely see is I try and do too many layers of different things going on, and things are just lost. The layers don't show up. So there is a sort of point of diminishing returns as you build out a marble like this, and you're going to see the first effects, the first layers, the second layer, or the third layer, you may not be really seeing it much. And the fourth layer, it's definitely not in the picture. But sometimes in something like this, you've got 4 layers going on, but they may create a different atmosphere. It's sometimes a little subtle what's going on in the background, but it does kind of influence the overall effects. And then different lighting, it sometimes gives you, kind of a hidden treasures, some Easter eggs. Okay, now we can kind of sharpen up this point. All right, now time to close it in. So I'm actually going to use more cobalt. That first cobalt was just like cobalt. This is dark cobalt. It's not a huge difference, but we're just going to close in this whole backside. It's not 100% opaque, but it's pretty dark. So I know a lot of people worry about the price of silver and gold, but the amount you use in these kind of projects is so tiny. I know you have to buck up to get some to begin with, but you have to kind of look at the big picture of how much is that really affecting the cost of doing business. Okay, I've got this kind of angled up. It gets a little dicey trying it because the heat is way different at the tip than the wide end. The tip gets overheated easily and distorted and messed around. So sometimes just some physical angles to help that glass move around. Okay. Now we're going to try and chase down the in-between. A little more delicate out here at the end. I kind of go straight into pressing it, trying to kind of squeeze it into place, and it's not 100% coverage, but it's pretty close. And I think that's going to be pretty good. Okay, well, we're just going to move on and finish this marble out. So we'll do some silver on here. All right, move forward to filling in the back. And this takes a few minutes, but we'll just try and chill out here and be grateful for all the good things in life. Practicing gratitude is kind of an interesting journey. I don't know if you all are into that sort of thing or not, but sometimes when you first start out practicing gratitude, it can be a little silly, a little awkward, not quite feeling it. So I know in my case, I started out where I was not in a very good space and mentally, and I had to just focus in on the simplest of things, having a bed to sleep in, having a hot shower. Because I have not experienced extreme bummed out situations in my life. I have experienced depression, but not through truly awful things happening in my life. But you try and get to a place where you start acknowledging all the things that you can acknowledge, that you honestly can say you're grateful for, and then kind of extend that until you're kind of pushing the envelope to, it reminds me when I started downhill skiing, and a friend of mine that was taking me up the mountain and didn't get a lot of instruction, but at some point I remember him saying, it's like, if you're not falling, you're not pushing yourself to learn or to advance your skill. So I guess that's kind of a take on all things in life, but certainly in glasswork, if you're not risking it, and you're not really getting anywhere, and that's okay, you can stick with the same. I mean, I made a bajillion soft glass beads, one after another, the same, trying to make them the same. So you can get in a groove and do something that's comfortable and familiar. But if you're doing kind of self-care work, in my opinion, it requires you to kind of push yourself a little bit, just a little bit, get out of your comfort zone and do things, put yourself in situations that aren't 100% familiar. Doesn't have to be anything too crazy. Some people have quite an outgoing personality, I guess, and they can put themselves in any situation, but I know for myself, I'm pretty introverted, so it's pretty uncomfortable for me to get out into a different situation in public, even with family. That's one thing I like about the glass work is it's something under my control. I'm the boss. I get to decide what I want to do. But when it comes to glass work specifically, you need to learn from the glass. Let it tell you what it wants to do. So if you're trying to push it to do things it doesn't want to do, you're going to have a challenge. Okay, coming up to the edge of the color, but I don't really want to go over it. I'm trying to keep this clear that I'm putting down right on the back side of the marble. Okay, got a first layer on there. That kind of seals everything together. Switch this to show. Using the L-marver for something like this is handy. Squeeze that white end. And this is kind of tricky on this end because like I always say, trying to keep that colored tip sticking out. So I want to roll that clear glass backwards just a bit. And it kind of defines the area we need to fill in. And once you have clear on clear, it's a lot easier to just lay down more clear. So just building up the bulk of the marble. And this is basically what defines the Vortex marble, is taking that cone-shaped interior and rounding it out. So the first step in rounding it out is filling in. you have kind of this separating layer of clear between the inside and the outside. A lot of people see the finished marbles and they're like trying to figure out, they think it's the same layer of color, but whatever is going on the inside, you turn around and look at it from the back side, and you're seeing the other side of the inside, but you're not. You've got this whole layer of clear in between, and then a whole different layer of pattern for the back side. At least that's what I'm doing in these marble builds. There's other concepts of how to finish it out. But you have basically just a geometric situation if you want that vanishing point depth in your marble. This is part of how you get there. Now this cone is still kind of stretched out, so I don't want to go too far adding this clear. I mean, you can if you want to build a really big marble, but I don't want it that big. So at some point I have to kind of decide there's enough clear on there, and then I'm just going to let heat compress it in. From an egg shaped, more of a spherical hemisphere anyway. Okay, now we're just going to throw some heat into it. I'm just using some real slow rotations when you can. I'm going to let that heat soak in there. Glass is such a good insulator, it just really doesn't let the heat penetrate very easily. So you have to build up this heat base kind of slowly. So I'm trying to get this kind of level. starting to droop a little bit. So once you're drooping, it's getting pretty hot. You have to keep rotating to counter the fall rate. So it's kind of pulling together just with surface tension. And kind of the bummer, you go through these heat cycles, you build up all this heat, take all this time and energy, literally energy, to get it heated up, and then you're going to let it cool down. Well, last week's marble, I didn't let it cool down long enough. So I'll try also to kind of start this lens side happening. Okay, it starts getting out of control, then we're gonna have to let it cool down. All right, well, making progress. I'm getting warm. Have our Vortex, anatomy of a Vortex marble graphics on the mug here. All right, what do we got here today? We're going to start with deep blue. Just come right along that edge. Going to define and seal that boundary between the clear and the colored sections. Just taking a peek down the inside. This one's going to wind up probably having kind of almost a clear, well, not a clear, but it's going to have kind of a window out the bottom. We'll see. These color layers will cover that up some as well. As we kind of come down here to the end and pile up a little bit of color right here at the very end. All right, then we've got some, let's see which way we're going to go. Some double amber purple. I tried to pull this out kind of slowly, so at least part of it was the haze burned out from the rod. I've got the torch kind of cranked a little bit to try and help burn out the haze on the side that's being laid down. See how that works. Okay, that was a little bright. And then we've got some unobtanium. We're making progress here. This color's laid down, and then we're going to hit it pretty aggressive with the heat. So we're chasing away the haze in this purple amber, as well as just melting the colors all down so they're integrated well. You can kind of tell on the cameras it's kind of blown out super hot. Just about there. Some of that, I think I was pausing so slow that I was getting it kind of get a little bit of a wave action going on. All right. Now, I think last week it was this step here that I did not wait long enough. Yeah, that thing's out of shape. That thing's kind of out of shape right now. Not too bad. I'm going to get this core temperature down so we don't wind up with a big wibbly wobbly mess like I did last week. It turned out to be a little frustrating. So sometimes a moment of pause is going to save you a whole bunch of headaches later. But it is a balancing act. So you need a lot of heat for the raking operation. Alright, come down to the front side. I need to extend the length of this tungsten rod. It's way too hot on my fingers. All right. push that edge in, kind of sharpen that point. And back to the beginning, there's usually some areas that kind of just pull apart a little bit. Alright, moving on, onwards and upwards. Another big heat cycle. I kind of squish that with the marble mold a little aggressively. I usually don't do that quite so aggressively here at this stage, but I had it all pretty hot, so torch set here a little bit. It's a little crazy. Alright, so we can get on point here. Now I did a lot of fuming, so this part of the rod has got a lot of messy leftover fume. So some of that is going to get baked into the marble and cause some artifacts in the lens. Not quite on the center axis there. Sometimes you have to heat up your puntee a little bit and get it to back in alignment. we got our diameter pushed out. I just need to build up some more quantity of glass here. Well, I thought this marble was going to be a little bit smaller scale, but I had that cone drawn out kind of lengthy, and then one thing leads to another, and this is yet again another pretty big marble. Okay, get up here. We think we got a good amount of glass built up. We'll cut this loose. Okay, time to rip and tear. So because of all that fuming and stuff, I want to be pretty aggressive at digging out some glass on this edge. Probably doesn't show up in the video, but you can see lots of bands of messy glass on the surface. It kind of gets into the depth of the glass a little bit here too, which I can't really dig it all out. I'm kind of careful on this end and tuck that in. So now even this next row I'm going to be fairly scraping a good amount off. Okay, got the worst of that part off. And up here we can do kind of a lighter skim. Okay, so roll that. We got a nice little ice cream cone shape. Upside down maybe, but looking pretty good. So just got this angled, pointed up, kind of pointed into the fire. Pretty good control, so we'll spin it a bit. You can really see how that pulls that clear in. Come up here on the Elm Arbor. So the edge kind of evened up. So we got the oversized mold. We'll go in here and start pushing that It's the one time when kind of trying to heat up a lot of the marble. Usually you get at the punty stage, you can only work on kind of the best 2/3 of the marble. Well, that's basically still where I'm at. I guess I should say generally you only work on half the marble. Sometimes you want to try and get the whole thing hot enough to start making some sense. So you get to some point where that clear lens on the front is pretty well shaped. It looks kind of big, but I think it's going to be good. Gotta be gentle about getting that punty on that clear lens. We're going to have to get rid of that connection later. Well, it's got a little bit larger than I thought. Maybe I'd get one done that was a little quicker just by scale. Okay, getting down to the, not quite the final stretch, but getting pretty close to it. And again, if you can, go really slow rotations and trying to build heat. As long as it's not flopping around. You need to be mindful if your colors are tolerating it. I mean, you sit in the heat too long and glass will boil. Try and do our rotation trick. Doesn't work nearly as well on the colored glass section. Fast pass into the marble mold. Leave that kind of lumpy bump out the end. Yeah, it's coming together. get to these later stages, you want to be kind of quick in and out of the marble molds. They'll suck out a lot of heat. Of course, they'll themselves get really hot, so the more you use them, that's kind of less of a problem, but still something to keep in mind. Yeah, I am kind of cranking out with some force. I'm going to push that low spot together. Okay, you get to some place. It's always kind of weird, this heat-based situation. And then you can afford to let the core actually cool down some because the shape is pretty well there. And you do these reheats, you're aiming to just influence the surface. And then we use faster rotations. And we think the shape is getting pretty close. And then we're down to kind of like the flame polish type steps. I'll get a little bit more motion out of the working of the front lens, but not much. So then we can let that settle down for a sec. Yeah, kind of got a window out the bottom. That's what I suspected. Okay, trying to kind of prep the bunty here into a little bullet nose. Get up where I want to attach. So then I'm looking at my right hand holding the puntee, the new puntee, and make sure it stays on axis, let the other one kind of wander. Okay. Now we're getting there. It's funny how the clear versus color, how the proportions work. I kind of aim for half and half, but it's never quite that. It's usually a little bit less on the lens. A minute ago, I was thinking I had more on the lens. And all these shaping manipulations kind of change the perspective. Wait a moment on this pass. Drop in on the back side where it's solid. Bring this up to the face, you want the apex of it hitting the edge of the marble mold and moving through that. So you're kind of going up and down with the puntee. And that should get a pretty good round shape. Okay, let that cool down. I think we're about done with this guy. Really appreciate any of you guys that are hanging out watching these videos. It means a lot to us, your support. Working with the sponsor, Epicwater filters. There's a link in the description below, which you can follow that. And if you choose to buy something off their website, we get a little bit of that, so it helps the channel. And you can get an awesome product. Okay, one more, just kind of a heat cycle, just a flame polish. Trying to really throw some fire at it for a short time. Come out of there, and once again we'll let it chill here. Get some nice purples there, and that purple amber. Nice ambers up at the edge. Yeah, well, I don't know how you're going to think about this. I went through the paces I wanted to go through. Doesn't visually come out the way I was hoping I would, but it's an interesting weave. Okie doke. Get some tweezers wet here. Quick little polish of this punty mark. I say quick, it takes a moment to do this. It very quickly smooths it out so it's not sharp or jagged or anything, but if you want it to kind of blend in, you kind of move the heat around, check the reflections. Looking good. Super. Well, we're doing good. Another marble going into the kiln. Another great day out at the torch shop. Hope you guys found that interesting or informative or in some way entertaining. In the kiln we go. Alrighty guys, take care of yourselves. Take care of those around you. Be kind. It's not too hard to do, just be kind. We'll see you on another adventure another day. Check it out.